Inspector General Horowitz getting grilled by the Senate today over his report in the FBI's investigation into the 2016 Trump campaign. This coming as House committee members are meeting to amend the articles of impeachment that were unveiled yesterday. Mike Emanuel is on Capitol Hill following it all. There is a lot to follow, Mike. What are the big takeaways?
Yeah, David, no doubt about it. A long day of testimony here on Capitol Hill as you had the Justice Department watchdog Michael Horowitz going over the findings of his 434-page report.
We found, and as we outline here, are deeply concerned that so many basic and fundamental errors were made by 3 separate handpicked investigative teams on one of the most sensitive FBI investigations after the matter had been briefed to the highest levels within the FBI.
Texas Senator Ted Cruz sounded outraged about the 17 major errors or omissions noted in the Inspector General's report.
If you had responsible leadership, there's no more important decision than you make. I can tell you when I was at DOJ, if someone said, let's tap Hillary Clinton, or let's tap Bill Clinton or John Kerry, the people there would have said, what in the hell are you talking about? What was going on here? This wasn't Jason Bourne. This was Beavis and Butthead.
The top Democrat on the Judiciary panel downplayed the significance of Inspector General Horowitz's findings.
So your report states that you didn't find documentary or testimonial evidence that political bias or improper motivation played a role.
That's correct.
Thank you. And you didn't find a deep state conspiracy against candidate or President Trump.
So, as to the opening, we found no bias, no testimonial documentary evidence on that.
A number of Republicans pushed for answers about whether anyone is being held accountable for what went on with the 2016 Trump campaign, trying to make sure that this does not happen again in the future. David?
Mike Emanuel, thank you very much. Joining us now is former Federal Prosecutor Sidney Powell, who currently represents General Michael Flynn. Sidney, great to see you. Thank you,
David.
Well, it's true that IG Horowitz says the origin of the Russian investigation wasn't politically motivated. But when he started talking about the FISA warrants, things changed a bit. And he said it appears, and I'm quoting him, something other than pure incompetence was at work for all the, particularly with regard to an FBI lawyer, Kevin Kleinsmith, who hated Donald Trump. He said it in emails, and he doctored a FISA warrant that allowed the Justice Department to spy on Carter Page, spy, investigate, whatever word you want to use. Was that politically motivated, and was that illegal?
It was definitely illegal. I mean, nobody without specific testimony by someone, which is all Inspector General Horowitz is saying, can say the reason that he did it. But obviously there are a lot of facts and circumstances that surround that, not the least of which are his multiple text messages talking about Viva la Resistance and his own loathing of President Trump. So those would be the things that a jury would consider in deciding his intent doing that. But we know he deliberately falsified an email to change the meaning 180 degrees, going from something did happen to something did not happen with respect to Carter Page. And that's falsification of evidence, obstruction of justice. He's looking at a serious 5-year felony.
Wow.
So why did the IG pull his punches?
Because he's what I think of as a bean counter. If he doesn't see a document or have someone testify that we did this because they said they hated Trump and they wanted to get Trump, he will not draw a conclusion.
But isn't the IG supposed to keep tabs to make sure the Justice Department doesn't get out of line? Instead of us saying, unless you put it right in front of my face, I'm not going to do anything. See no evil, hear no ill.
He only looks at DOJ policies and procedures and is whether they were complied with or they need to change the policies. That may be one thing,
but why did he explicitly state that there was no conspiracy? Why didn't he just say...
He should have not said anything.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, Sidney, I mean, you've read all this stuff, and you don't have those constraints. What's your interpretation? Because I think for a lot of Americans, they heard, okay, no political bias, but then you read this opening statement of the Inspector General, and there are so many omissions of fact, obviously intentional misleading items put before the FISA court, et cetera.
There were some flat-out lies.
What is the possible alternative explanation that the FBI from head to toe is incredibly incompetent? I mean, is that that what the FBI wants to go with on this?
I certainly hope that's not what they want to go with, and I hope somebody like Mr. Kleinsmith decides to tell the truth when he's interviewed by John Durham or gets indicted for what he's done and decides he wants to cooperate.
And would that lead up the chain of command?
Yes, I would think it would. I mean, these people were all hand-picked.
Right.
And they were picked for a reason. It defies reality to suggest that there wasn't some serious nefarious motive for doing what they did, because we're talking about 17 instances of outrageous, deliberate falsehoods, omissions, misrepresentations, all against President Trump.
So when can we expect a report from Dunham?
I don't think Durham's going to do a report. I think he's going to start indicting people.
Good.
Scott?
Yeah, so Sidney, with respect to that and the indictments, I mean, what kind of damage has this done, let's say, to the American people's psyche? I mean, you went through a couple weeks of just these laborious impeachment hearings. You've got, obviously, as we've just talked about in the roundtable here, all these kind of tit-for-tats that are going on now. You talked about the Dunham report. I mean, what does it look like to the American people coming out of this after what we've been doing for the last few months on this phase?
Well, I think anybody who's really been paying attention to it is absolutely mortified by what's been revealed. It's terribly disheartening. I mean, I wrote about it a number of years ago in License to Lie, exposing corruption in the Department of Justice. And because nobody was held accountable then, no matter how much I was screaming about it, it got worse. I mean, we have to go back to looking at the fact they changed the balance of power in the United States Senate in the Ted Stevens case. That's what they did there. They took out the longest-serving Republican in the United States Senate on a corrupted prosecution where they were hiding the evidence that showed he was innocent, just like they did with Carter Page here. And they destroy lives every time they do that. They destroy the lives of good, innocent people when they do it.
By the way, in January 2017, right after the president was inaugurated, the FBI got solid information discrediting the Steele dossier, discrediting it. And yet the FBI did not share that information with the FISA court, and they got 2 renewals after that happened. Is somebody going to pay a price for that?
Well, they better, because it's even worse than that. One of the things we discovered in the Flynn case is that there's a letter that was given by the British consulate, hand-delivered to the incoming national security team, that completely disavows and destroys the credibility of Christopher Steele. It wound up with the ODNI, which is Clapper's department, and disappeared. That letter's out there somewhere. People have seen it, people knew about it. So there was that, and then there was also Kathleen Kavlik telling them before they ever got the first FISA warrant that Steele was a liar.
Right, it's an onion. You have a lot of peels to this onion. Sydney, you got to come back. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David.